But with that said, give me that. So when you moved to Japan, right? Because you live in Japan now, right? When you moved to Japan, give me an idea of some of the biggest culture shocks you experienced as
the biggest culture shock was the racism. Oh my gosh. It
really?
was so deliciously clever. And what I mean by this, it was just so genius. So
Really?
for example, I was at the crossing, like crossing the road, and this was before the Rona. And so not everyone in Japan, they've always had masks on if they sneeze, not because they don't want to give it to other people, they find it rude. So some people have masks on even before Rona, but not everyone did. So there was this she was very, very pretty, I'm going to be honest, woman, and like young lady. And she was the kids. I've got twins, and they were in this like really cool, like they call it a baby car, which is so cute. It's a pram, a stroller, but in Japan they call it a baby car. So the kids are in the baby car, the stroller, and it's like one on the top and one on the bottom kind of thing. So you can see they're twins. And she was like, like talking. And at that time, I couldn't understand what she was saying. But I was going by the fact that she looked cute. And so kawaii, man. But I was thinking she was saying that, they were cute, but she wasn't. Anyway.
What did she say?
And she was like, so in Japanese, there's kawaii and kawaii. And kawaii means cute and kawaii is strange. But she was going up. She was going, kawaii. But she was saying it high, so it sounded cute. Like it sounded sweet. You don't think it's offensive. And then what she did is she started to count the kids, but she counted them like they were animals, because there's different ways to count animals and humans. Do you see? So she's still doing it in that uptone. She's got this beautiful face. I'm not going to like lie about that, even though I want to. And then she's going uptone. So I'm there going, thank you kind of thing. And my husband's jaw, when men do that twitchy jaw thing, and he's just holding on. And I know he's going to pop off, because he doesn't normally pop off. He's when something's very principled, they're very calm, But, and I see the jaw twitching, and he was just going like that. And I was like, it's, And then he told me what happened, and I started to cry because I couldn't believe that I'd been caught in this trap. Or thinking that this was a nice. She looked at me, she smiled, and then she's calling my kids dogs, basically. No offense at all. The way she's counting them, because she's counting them like they're animals, she doesn't count them like they're humans. So that's the kind of racism. There was another one where someone asked me my blood type, and I was like, I don't know what my blood type is. People in England don't know. Like, it's not normal. But in Japan, blood type is like star sign. So she was like, what blood type are you? And I was like, I don't know. So she was like, I think you're let's say XYZ, whatever. And I'm like all gassed up, like, really? You think I'm this? And she was like, totally. And I was pure gassed. I was like, oh my God, she thinks I'm this blood type. Oh my God. And then when I Googled it, it was like, like all the manga villains, like all the most of the villains and most of the bad people are this blood type.
Oh, shit.
So that's clever. That's the kind of thing that you get here. It's not direct. It's like, when you're like, what? Someone cusses you, but you're like, thank you, I think. And then it's only when you do your research that you're like, oh my gosh, I just got cussed out. And I didn't even realize it happened. So I'm not saying that there isn't the very overt stuff, but there's a lot of the very, very clever one, or, like stuff like that. And I think that's a lot harder, because you can't explain it to someone. Because if I said to someone, she asked me my blood type, people would be like, and so? The nuance is not there, like, unless you're there. If I say to someone, she counted my kids, I'd be like, you've got twins, of course, why are you being silly, and then you have to really go deep and explain, actually, I get it. And they'll be like, what, that pretty girl over there, the cute boys, couldn't be, that's what I find difficult about the racism here. What I find interesting for my kids is that they really like police cars. And the police will wave at my kids, and they'll put the lights on for my kids, and they'll be so sweet to my kids. So that's also it's something that I kind of wanted for them to have that childhood.
Okay.
But at the same time, if feel strange within myself. Does that make sense?
Hey, explain. What do you mean?
So, for example, even in the UK, we still have our tensions also with the police. You know what I mean? You know, people say, if you haven't done anything wrong, but just coming from the Black community, you know, we have our stop and searches as well. Okay. You know, we don't have guns or anything like that in England, which must seem really strange, but we will still be a target. Like, as soon as my cousins learnt to drive, we were like, you've become a man, you're going to have your first stop and search soon. Like, it was that kind of dark humor.
I've been stopped and searched before. Right? Yeah,
because it's that's what I meant with the my cousin. It's like a rite of passage if you're a Black boy. Yeah, you know, you're gonna get. That's why we were like, you're gonna be a man soon, like teasing him. Yeah, you know. And once I actually got stopped and searched, right? And they were like, and they put down what I wrote, and I was like, the boots are Prada, darling, Prada. Make sure you write Prada on the, because they have to write down what you were wearing. I was like, make sure you write Prada on that description. I was so annoyed, but I just was like, oh. Okay. And because we get not everyone, but I got a paper. When I got stopped and searched, I got a piece of paper. And it said what the person looked like, what they were wearing. Yeah. Like a receipt. Yeah. Prada boots, darling. Prada.
So how does that affect, like, how does that reflect your kids in interactions with the police in Japan?
Because it doesn't affect their interactions with police. They adore police. You know, it's time they're boys. They're like police cars. They're like ambulances. Like even Gamishishisha, which is the garbage truck. Like the fascination with like automobiles. And then the police, when they see my kids, they'll put the little flashes on to like flash. You know, like to to acknowledge that they've seen little kids, kind of thing. Yeah. And they've got you know, the mount. Motorbike police, and they'll give a little wave, you know what I mean? And it just, for me, it's something beautiful, but also something bizarre. It's beautiful.
Does it feel triggering to you when the police are interacting with your kids?
It feels a little bit like almost sad, because I also am not naive. I know there's a limited time period. You know, because there's still my kids have got beautiful, glorious dark skin and big afros. You know, like when people imagine Blasian babies, like their pedigrees, they always imagine like light skin and straight silky hair. But my kids have got gloriously dark skin and glorious afros, so they just look like random Black kids. Like, no, if they went to London and said they were Japanese, everyone would be like, why are you lying? Why are you always lying?
How does that impact your husband, right? Like, has he experienced any type of like mistreatment or judgment for walking around with these Black kids who are his own biologically?
I think a lot of people don't realize that they're his. Like, you know, they're not expecting, because they're like, it's not even like they've got a mixed skin type. Their skin type is exactly the same as mine. Big puffy afros. So I think a lot of people don't realize that they're his until he's like really holding their hands, and they speak perfect Japanese. It's like so funny, so cute. And then they clock on, and then they're like, oh, because it's not what you would expect, even if they were mixed. And also, it's another triggering. I don't even like to use the word triggering because I'm kind of laid back, nothing really bothers me. Okay. But a triggering thing for me is they have got these gorgeous dark afros and skin, which is just delicious and lovely. And actually it was funny because it was an Asian girl who actually used the word glorious about my kids' hair. Okay. And I never heard that at home, because this goes into colorism, where a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, Blasian babies, right? Blasian, Black and Asian, Blasian. Yeah. And my kids, when they were born, they were twins and they were premature. So they were white. Like, we're talking like, do you know, like, you know, the Matrix, when they're in the little shell things? Yeah. They come out the embryotic fluid. So they're really white, isn't it? Because, you know, and so they were like really, really white because they were premature, even though that might not make sense. But
no, I get it.
Yeah. And they had really silky straight hair. So everyone was gassed up because they were like, yeah, oh my God, this is so cool. And I was just happy they were alive and healthy, you know.
As you should.
Right.
I want to get into something that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You mentioned about like how women kind of shut down sexually with their husbands after.
Oh, you want to talk about the good stuff, do
no,
you?
it's not even. No. I'm going somewhere. It's not necessarily about sex per se.
Yeah.
Right. I want to know if any of that has any reflection on what it's like to be a woman in Japan, especially like marriage and relationships. Like what is the dynamic like between men and women, especially in relationships in Japan? And what does it mean to be a woman in Japan?
As an outsider looking in, I would say that to be a woman in Japan, it's all about roles. Everyone fulfills a role. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So it's very normal for a woman to be a housewife. That's not to say that everyone is a housewife. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being a housewife. Or we call it housewife. Maybe you guys call it homemaker.
Sure.
So it's very normal for a Japanese woman to be a homemaker. But that's not to say everyone is. But it's that role of you're the wife. You cook, you clean, you look after the household. And you look after the kids. And the kids, they have to be hyper good. It's normal at 3 years old. The kids do exams at 5 years old to get into 5 years old to get into a private school.
Yeah.
So there are kids out there that are going to these, you know, like cramming, studying so hard to get into a private school at 5 years old. Yeah. So you need to have a mother that's on point, and one can get into that cramming school because that's got etiquette. So not everyone can get into it. So she's got to be on point. So everything is about being on point. So it's a lot of pressure. It's not just you're a mum and end of story. It's a lot of pressure. Yeah. So when you have this, you have to deal with the pressure, you have to compartmentalize. This is the way I'm looking at it, and put yourself into certain roles. So there's not time for everything to start overlapping. And the husband goes out, he works. There's a thing called and they work to the point where it's just ridiculous. So there's a thing called karoshi, I think, if I'm saying it right, and it's death by overworking, and it's not seen as something that's strange. It's like, oh, he just died from overworking. Oh, okay. Yeah. You know. And the thing about that is, after you're in the office, what they do is, if I'm getting it right, I might be confusing it, because in Shanghai they did something similar. It was where you actually sign the contracts but I think in Japan they're very formal, so they probably do it in the office, but then they go out to drink with the client, and then the client either enjoys the fact that they sign the contract and it builds a better harmony, or they sign the contracts when they're out drinking. You know, like, I don't want to conflate it with, because I know in Shanghai they like to do the contracts when they're out drinking, because it's like a friendship. Yeah, if you do it in the boardroom, it's seen like kind of formal, but if you do it when you're out, and again, this is not everyone, this is a kind of generalization, but what I'm trying to say is there's an element of drinking with the client to create a harmony, to create a friendship. Yeah. And so the husband will come home at 11 o'clock at night, 12, 1, and this might be on a Wednesday night, like on a random Wednesday night. Yeah. So how can you get turned on by you've been with the kids all day and your husband's coming in at you know, like 2 o'clock in the morning? Yeah. And then you've had to make, like, because they make beautiful elaborate meals, and you've had to make the elaborate meals, and then, you know, you've got to go to this crazy etiquette lesson tomorrow. And so that's where also a lot of tension comes in. The funny thing is, women keep all the money of the household.
What does that mean?
So women get all their husband's salary and they pay them pocket money.
They pay their husband pocket money.
Yeah.
Look at you.
No, my husband doesn't play those games. He's like mute.
I like your husband. He seems like he's on point. Like, he's like, yo, I'm not like these others here. He's like, I'm hung like a horse. Treat me as such. All right, that's what he's saying.
He's what we call in England a geezer. Like he's just a sound. He's a cool guy. That's why I liked him, because it was cool. But that's the norm. That's very normal. In fact, they have in like the dollar store, they've got a housekeeping book where you can put in all your thing, because she takes the money, but of course she does like the all the bills and stuff.
Yeah.
But these women are wearing some Gucci. They're wearing they're making sure they look good as well. So they're getting a little something.
So, but what is the perspective on women? Do women feel like they have like equal footing in society, or do you feel like the women take a step back because of like tradition and cultural expectations?
What I would say is there's this ideal that the women are very docile.
In Japan?
They're very reserved to the outside world, but when the door shuts, it's like any country, the door shuts, that's when they can go bah, 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 if they want to, if that's the way they're inclined to be. So I think in Japan it's very hard for the women, but it's also hard for everyone, because for example in the workplace, you can't get higher than someone who's older than you. So if you...
Is that a woman thing, or is that just any person?
Sorry, that's a workplace thing. Okay. So you can't get higher than someone who's older than you, but it's very much a structure. So it's so everyone is feeling the pressure of you're in your confines of what you're allocated, of what life allocates you. It's very hard to get out of a certain role. And I think for women, that's always all over the world. It's been very hard, because as a woman, we're always stuck in a role.